name is James Moran. Welcome to the Archetypal News Network. And today I'd like to talk with you about some of the ways the Saturn-Uranus combination has shown up in the news recently. In mid-March, we had a controversy having to do with LGBTQ rights and Disney, in which the governor of Florida put into motion a bill that became known as the Don't Say Gay bill. And Disney, which had been perceived by its employees to be a very LGBTQ friendly corporation, apparently the employees did not see the action taken by the CEO, Bob Chapek, as strong enough against that bill in Florida, where Disney has considerable amount of presence. And so we can see, looking at the chart for mid-March, we can see how we have a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction this year, and a classic example of Jupiter-Neptune are scenarios that are Disney-like. We have, for instance, Michael Jackson was born with Jupiter-Neptune, and he had his own amusement park called Neverland. And Jupiter-Neptune is associated with the enchantment side of life, the kind of spiritual unifying factor behind life and the visionary side of life. And Jupiter gives a boost and an uplift and a positive, optimistic kind of buoyancy to that Neptunian enchantment, allowing for a kind of a grand sweeping fantasy. So we have Never Never Land. We have Disney can be easily seen in those tones in the kind of enchanting stories of fairy tales and whatnot. And so around mid-March, we had Mercury go into conjunction with Jupiter and Neptune. And at the same time, we had a Venus-Mars conjunction square to Uranus and conjoined with Saturn. So why is that important? The Mercury, Jupiter, Neptune has to do with a lot of the message that was coming out around Disney had to do with the message of Disney. So Mercury has to do with the message, what is the written word, what is communicated, and what is the message. And a lot that had to do with Disney was disappointment in the way that Bob Chapek addressed the issue through his words, through his communications, through his emails, through his letters. And so we have the Mercury, Jupiter, Neptune as reflected in Disney. And then there's the Saturn, Uranus square of our current time, our current era in history, our current few year swath in history, which holds a tension between the limitations of Saturn, the constraints of Saturn, the conservatism of Saturn, and the freedoms of Uranus, and the kind of release, emancipation, liberal tendencies of Uranus. And the Venus-Mars shows up as a kind of Venus has to do with love and sensuality, and there's an overlap. The Venus has to do with values. Venus has to do with love. Venus has to do with sexuality. Venus and Mars, particularly, both together have to do with sexuality. Mars, the forceful action principle. And so together with Uranus, there was kind of a forceful rebellion. That's that Uranian energy, the rebellion, Mars, that forcefulness around issues of love that were seen in a Saturnian light to be very limited, very constrained through the Don't Say Gay bill. And so both Uranus and Saturn have a spectrum of manifestation, from the challenging side to the rewarding side. The challenging side of Uranus is disruptiveness, suddenness, the unexpected. And the positive side of Uranus is that emancipatory principle, the freedom, the successful rebellion. The challenging side of Saturn is the limitations, the constraints, the heaviness. And the rewarding side of Saturn is the groundedness, the maturity, the kind of perseverance, the discipline that comes from facing all the reality checks, limitations, and constraints of the challenging side of Saturn. And so through that combination, we can see the challenging sides of both Uranus and Saturn. The challenging sides being that Saturn showed up as this constraining bill, and then Uranus showed up as a kind of Uranus with Mars and Venus showed up as this unexpected rebellion, that occurred, even unexpected to the employees of Disney, who ended up staging walkouts on Disney. So that's the disruptive side of Uranus. So interestingly, this combination continues to be in the air as we come into late March, and just in a different representation. In the example of what happened at the Oscars with Will Smith and Chris Rock. Chris Rock made a joke that was about Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, and her short hair, which is caused by a condition known as alopecia, I believe, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And so at this point in the transit, Venus, because we moved ahead to the end of March, Venus is exactly conjoined with Saturn. It's very common in women who, well, not very common, but it's representative in women that are born with Venus Saturn. We see, at least in celebrities, the Saturnian principle can kind of limit and constrain, but can also give a stately nature, kind of a mature, stately nature. Venus has to do with love. It also has to do with beauty and attraction. And so we see, for instance, in like Annie Lennox, we see also in Sinead O'Connor, both born with Venus Saturn, how they have worn short hair throughout their life. There's a sense of that Saturnian constraint upon the kind of the beauty principle, but yet it shows up as a kind of a stately beauty. Brienne Hildegard, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, the actress, also often appears with very short hair or even a shaven head in the Marvel movies. So it's interesting, the joke that Chris Rock said at the Oscars was about Jada Pinkett Smith's short hair. So it's a Venus Saturn reflection there. And then we see Mars is still actively in a square to Uranus, and Will Smith approached the stage and hit Chris Rock in the face. And so we see the disruptive side of Uranus again, that kind of outburst, that very unexpected Uranus forceful action, Mars. So with both these examples, we can see the disruptive side of Uranus as the unexpected kind of burst of rebellious energy coming in a Mars way, a forceful rebellious act. We can see Saturn showing up as the in the example of Disney, it's a kind of like a very constraining, heavy, burdensome action that carries some judgment to it. In the example of Will Smith and Chris Rock, it's the heaviness of the joke, or the reality, the seriousness around love. It was Will Smith's wife, and also beauty, her aesthetic appearance. So the Venus Saturn shows up as that kind of that heavy reality around love and beauty. And so we see the challenging side of both in that combination. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up at this point is to just bring to the conversation the positive sides of Uranus and Saturn, particularly Saturn, because Saturn is shows up as its positive side, shows up as wonderfully as a kind of a depth of maturity, a kind of a discipline, a perseverance, a sense of groundedness and self-authority. And so in both those examples, I haven't quite spotted that positive side of Saturn, but maybe you have, or maybe in other examples you have. So leave that in the comments. The hope is always that with these transits, we get to move through the tension held therein and come out with the positive examples. So again, positive examples of Saturn, that maturity, that groundedness, rootedness, positive examples of Uranus, that kind of successful, rebellious, exciting action. And so an example, for instance, of like a positive Saturn-Uranus combination, we could see in the example of Rosa Parks. She has the quote that her quote is something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, but I hope to achieve freedom so that others may also achieve freedom. So for her, there's this sense of the successful rebellion and the freedom enjoyed of Uranus, while at the same time, that sense of responsibility and maturity of Saturn. You know, it's not just for herself. She wants to enjoy freedom, but she wants to enjoy freedom with the full awareness of responsibility that others can enjoy freedom as well. So that's my hope, is that, you know, as this Saturn Uranus square continues with us, we can come to the positive inflection, or the kind of rewarding, very gratifying inflection of both of the two, as we see in ourselves, in our inner world, in our personal sphere, and also in the collective news of our planet. So thank you so much for joining me here today to hear about Disney in the news, Will Smith in the news, LGBTQ rights in the news, and the archetypal world transits of our current era. Thank you so much. See you next time.